Hey, what's up, my fellow parents? Hey, thanks for tuning in for another time with Jordan and I as we talk parenting, family life. And I just want to say a big thank you to you. Thank you for listening. And for those of you that have left us reviews on Apple Podcast reviews or on Spotify or whatever streaming service you listen to us, I just want to give you a huge shout out. Thank you. Look at this one really nice comment that somebody left, Jordan. Can I read it? It says, gratitude. So thankful for these guys. They've helped me to see what I was doing wrong in parenting and not just passing blame on my kids and their negative behaviors. I realized that my daughter's reacting to me was exactly the way I'd respond to her when she angered me. I was forgetting she's a child and I'm the adult. If I can't contain my negative reactions, how am I expecting my 14-year-old teenager to do it? Also, great to know we're not alone in the journey because sometimes I feel this way. Keep up the amazing work, you guys.
Nice. That's a great response. That's so true, though. I mean, way to kind of put it in writing for everybody. Because as you're listening, you're like, wait, I do that same thing. Yeah. So many of us come down to our kids' level. We don't realize that like they're learning from us. Everything we do, they learn from us. So that's good. I'm glad we can help you out, man.
I really liked how this person who wrote it. I don't know who wrote it. If it's a mom or a dad, just also wrote about feeling alone because I think we all feel alone in adulting. Friendships are hard. We can't even feel alone in our marriages. Single parents can feel alone. Co-parents feel alone. It's just so lonely, and we just want you to know you are not alone. You are in. We are in this with you. There's the challenges you face. Millions and millions of people face those same exact challenges, and we just want to encourage you. You are a great parent. You're growing as a parent. You're listening to a parenting podcast, and it's just such an honor to be in your life. So thank you. Thank you.
And you're not alone at all. We're all going through this together. If you ever need a pep talk, you could, of course, just reach out. Just literally give yourself an update on like social media. Just type out an update. You'll be shocked at how many people respond. Just with you
Yeah, it's
basically kind
true.
of journaling to yourself, you know?
I'm going to open up in this episode because I've got some kind of painful stuff on my heart that I'm going to share about in a little bit. To kind of share about some of the things that I'm going through. But Jordan, I'm really excited for today's episode. We haven't like figured out what the title of it is yet. But I asked you, hey, what should we do an episode on? And can you tell everyone listening what we chatted about and how we landed on today's episode?
Well, the funny thing happened is it literally just came to my wife actually last weekend, and we'll get into the reason why that happened. But she basically came to me after an event and was like, hey, that is a huge trigger for me. And I'm realizing it right now. And it's going to put me on a bad path for the rest of the day. And I'm addressing it so that you know what it is that's triggering me. And she's like, you guys should talk about that as a podcast, like different
Oh,
triggers that could really
yeah.
stem your partner or your kid or yourself into a downward spiral that we don't want to get. That's the main thing we're trying to prevent, right? We're trying to keep our
Wow.
minds straight.
Yeah.
So that's
So
where the idea came from.
are you gonna tell us in this
Oh yeah.
episode what
Oh,
she
I'll
said?
tell you.
And are
I'll
you gonna
tell you
tell us?
exactly what happened. And let me just
Yeah.
say this: it was all my fault. So I'll just be guilty here and just say hey, it was my fault.
Yeah.
But we will get to the bottom of it.
Before we get and do some storytelling, because Jordan and I are really going to talk about our own family lives today, our own personal lives, and some things that are going on in our lives here to help you to think about your life. Let me read some things that I found because when we're talking about triggers and traumas, they can be very connected sometimes. Sometimes they're not, and sometimes they are. And I want to read some things just to have you and I chat about them real quick. So, Jordan, I found something on verywellmind.com, and here's what it says. Because I actually typed in, what is a trigger? What does it mean to be
Yeah.
triggered? I actually looked at tried to find some actual definitions from psychologists. I've been really learning a lot about triggers and traumas over the last 5 years. While I don't specialize in it, it is a big part of my work. In my hand right now, I'm holding a 500-pound book. I'm sorry, 500 pages book. It feels like the same thing. It's
Right.
called The Myth of Normal. Gabor Mate. He's a very famous psychologist. You've probably seen him all around social media. This book is literally 500 pages, 498. And there aren't that many people that actually specialize in trauma. But there's all these super smart geniuses like this guy that are out there now that are helping us everyday Joes to understand traumas and triggers. It's a really fascinating topic. I'm really pumped that you brought this up to have an episode about it, my dude.
And this would be like, a big thing that we hear about a lot is like PTSD, right? Post traumatic stress disorder. And a lot of people in the military have that, right? And we talk about that frequently. But I think PTSD has become more of a term you throw around in everyday life. And maybe, trigger PTSD, it all stems from something, right? We got to figure out what that is.
Yes, well said. Yeah, I've got a teenager that I'm working with, and he's having PTSD symptoms at his high school because his bullying, of how he experienced bullying so severely at middle school. He literally is like he's just like a soldier would, is having symptoms of PTSD. So let me read this thing to you. Being triggered means that you experience a strong negative emotional reaction in response to a current situation that is disturbing you in some way. For individuals with a history of trauma or abuse, triggers are often stimuli that bring up involuntary memories of their traumatic past experiences, says Amy Mazulis, PhD.
Right. And that makes sense, right? And I guess the question is, when you were looking up the word trigger, where did that come from? Obviously, it stems from
Ooh,
a gun, right? You
yeah,
have a trigger, and when you
yeah,
pull
it's
it, you get an
interesting.
explosion. So it's
Right.
it's an event that causes you to react a certain way. Is basically what
Mm-hmm.
that is saying.
I like that. Yeah, I'm glad you read that. It's like, yeah, all of a sudden you're in a good spot, things are fine, and then you see something, you hear something, or somebody says something to you is obviously the most common thing, I think. And then boom, just like that gun goes off, there's an explosion, and you're in a different place.
Right.
If you're physically in the present, but you may not be actually like mentally in the present in that moment.
Which has got to be hard for the people around you, because how are we supposed to know where they are mentally, right? Because
Mm,
physically they're right next to you, but mentally they're going
gosh.
through something that could cause big problems.
I really just want to emphasize something you said. This is something I think 100% of us, this episode, this topic, can relate to. You do not have to be a soldier to experience trauma, or to have to be physically abused or sexually abused to experience trauma. There is so much trauma out there now, a lot of research on it. There's things like ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. There's things like how maybe you went through a really hard time in your like maybe your first marriage, or even in your current marriage, or maybe with a pregnancy, or maybe with something that had to do with a substance. Like it is, or something that had to do with a parent. Like the list goes on. Let me read. Fear Untriggered isn't just about something rubbing you the wrong way. For someone with a history of trauma, being around anything that reminds them of a traumatic experience can make them feel like they're experiencing the trauma all over again.
Right. And it's not just hard on that one individual, it's hard on those who they surround themselves with, right? Those who love them. If you're in the same home, you're experiencing this too, or the reactions of that person.
Mm. I'm glad that you keep bringing that up. I keep reading this quote, and you keep saying really smart stuff about how our traumas and our triggers are not just about us, they impact our loved ones and our
Right.
coworkers.
Right.
However, Mazulis notes that even people without a history of trauma can be triggered when something elicits a strong emotional reaction. Some people cope with stressful events more easily than others.
Mm-hmm.
Consider the impact that such events have on people, or on people's mental illness. So, right, it
In
doesn't, you don't.
in your experience, in your um, career working with children and adults for that matter, have you had someone who constantly was triggered by something that they were able to grow out of or adapt from and heal from? Or
Countless
is it always going to
times.
be there?
No, countless times. Many,
Okay.
many times I've seen people not do the work that they need to do to heal. I've seen people try to do the work and they weren't able to fully heal. And I've got great news for you. Yes, I've seen many people and walked alongside people and helped parents and young people alike to really say, I feel healed from this trauma. Why did you ask me that?
Just because I'm wondering if this is something that will be around forever. In some cases, people are going through memories of their own families right now, and they know, yep, this person I know has this trigger, and they've been going through this for years, and I've been there by their side. Will they ever get over it? Will I ever get over it? Right. So I just wonder, is what is the healing factor? Is it time? Is it putting in the work? Let's
It's
say you
definitely putting
had,
in the work. It's definitely
okay,
putting in the work,
putting
man.
in the work.
It's not time. Time, there's a
Okay.
saying, time heals all wounds. That's not
Right.
true. not the way
Okay.
these geniuses like Gabor Mate are helping us understand. And if you are looking for another answer to that, we sat here about a month ago with a man named Chris Smith, and we filmed an episode about called Parenting and Trauma. And dude, if he's not a living example of how you cannot do the work you need to do to be healed from trauma, like, right? He's
Right.
such a
He had a
a
lot of
living
trauma.
example.
Right.
So like
That's
it
true.
makes me wonder, like I've known him for like 2 years now. We've shared life together, we've had conflict together, we've gone camping together, which is kind of like living with somebody. And I've never
Hmm.
heard him once say, you know, Sean, that really triggers me. You can't be doing that. That's not the way he talks.
Well, yeah, for a lot of people, it's internal, right? So, like, because my question, I guess it's alluding to a much deeper question, and that is not only can we adapt from it and heal from it, but
Yeah.
is it work we have to do? Like, are we being lazy if we just say, "Oh, that's a trigger for me. Oh, I can't. It'll trigger me.
Ooh.
I can't do it." You know what I mean?
Right. That's such a sensitive question.
I know
Like,
it's
dude.
sensitive. I just
Right. That's it. Right. Are we being
because
lazy
people use it
by
as an excuse.
so are
They
you
do.
saying your wife was being lazy by saying, "Hey, that really triggers me, hubby"? Right? That you know how mean that would be for you to say?
I
Like,
know.
yeah, like, dude,
Right.
you'd be minimizing her. And we're going to talk about that in this episode, right? Oh,
Yeah.
what the heck?
Yeah.
That's your problem. Go see your therapist, honey.
Right.
Right?
Because my thing going deeper is who's in charge of your feelings and your
Yeah,
triggers.
it's so
You are.
complicated.
It's complicated.
It's
So it's
so
like
complicated.
I'm not in charge of your feelings. You're feeling this way. You're
Yeah,
telling me you feel this
buddy.
way because you're triggered by something. I'm sorry, I can't fix you. You got to fix you. That's where I'm coming from.
No, I
This
think
has
that's a
nothing to do with my wife,
valid.
by the way.
Oh no, we
This is
get it. But
just
no,
in
where you're
general.
coming from is normal and it's healthy and it's valid, but it's a pie chart, and I think that's a piece of the pie. And like, and the reason I bring that up about Chris never saying to me, you know, Sean, I'm really
Right.
triggered. You know, you can't drink alcohol around me, or Sean, you can't talk to me that way, or Sean,
Yeah.
it's not you, it's me. He's never talked that way. Why? Well, I think partly why is because he has so much healing in his life that these things don't trigger him anymore. Or that when they do, they're not like a strong trigger. It's just a tiny trigger, and he knows how to self soothe and self talk his way through these stressful experiences. That's what my opinion is on that
Yeah.
one man.
Okay.
On
Right.
one man, not on you,
On one man.
not on anyone
Right.
else.
Correct. On him. I get it.
Right? It's like this
I
is
get it.
such a sensitive topic. I would like us to both do that probably 4 more times. Like we have to be so precise with our words when we're
Right.
talking about this because this episode
It's not
is gonna
general.
trigger. This episode's
You're
gonna
right.
trigger people. I just
It
realized
sure
that.
is. They're gonna throw their phones. You're gonna get mail saying, "Yeah, you broke my phone because you made me so mad. I throw that sucker down the road."
Dude, I don't know if I should laugh or cry right now based on what you just said. Here's what Amy also said. Triggers typically elicit strong and negative emotions, such as fear, anger, or shame. People may feel unsafe or threatened, and as a result, may react by panicking, try to escape the situation, crying, acting out, or becoming defensive. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. No, it makes. I mean, anytime you use this word or talk about triggers, it's always a
Yeah.
negative emotion. It's never like,
Right.
"Oh my gosh, that was such a great trick. I'm so happy we did that." You know,
Yeah.
like it triggered me to just feel
has been
great.
good.
And it's like, no, that's not happening
Right. This
here.
has been good for me to just get triggered.
Right.
Like this. Yeah. This is like fight or flight is the old way of looking at it. Now it's fight, flight, or freeze. And yeah, this is what Amy is talking about here is that when we get triggered, some of us are more prone to fight, which is get more maybe aggressive or shaming someone or controlling somebody or threatening somebody or, you know, fight, flight. Flighting would be more like, you know, leaving
Running
a
away.
situation, running
Yes.
away, quitting, divorcing, threatening divorce. Maybe substances can get in there. Like substances obviously can affect all of us through traumas. I mean, Gabor talks a lot about that in his writing. And then freeze, which is like you just don't know what to say. Maybe it's people pleasing. Maybe it's rescuing.
Right.
Maybe it's just like you minimize and you squelch your own emotions. I think this is what Amy's talking about in this quote. Do you agree?
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm definitely a freezer. I'm just kind of
you're a
let's
freezer.
pause and let me think about this for a second. Yeah.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm definitely struggle with flighting. I call myself a recovering avoider,
Yeah.
because I flighted when I was a kid, and it totally works for me, man. I
Yeah.
just bounce.
I fly too. A lot of us fly too. Yeah, you leave the
Yeah,
situation, you just
just
run
leave.
away for a little bit, then you come back later, but you just need to cool off. I get it.
Yeah, yeah. There's
Yeah.
difference between flighting though and timeouts. Leaving a situation
That's
and coming
true.
back. That's
You're
a
right.
timeout.
Yeah, you're
All
right.
right, here's what BetterUp.com reports when I found this. How do triggers form? This is interesting. Ready?
Yeah.
And researchers aren't entirely sure how or why the brain forms triggers. Right? Well, thanks
Yeah,
for
it's
asking.
like
All right.
yeah, I know, but it's like we could be triggered by a dang dream. Like I had a dream about someone, and then like
Yep.
you see them
Yep.
the next day, and you're so mad at them
Yep.
because of
Yeah.
what they did in a
I
dream. You know what
know.
I'm saying? And you're like,
I
what is
do
wrong
know
with
what I'm
you?
saying. How many times has your wife woken up to you? Danielle's woken up to me, and she's had a bad dream about me, like I'm cheating
Yeah.
on her or doing something
Right.
shady. And
Yeah.
she's
Just
like,
anything.
she's upset at me, and I'm like, honey.
What
She's
did I
like, no, it's
do?
just a dream. I said, that's not a dream. That's not a dream. That's called a nightmare.
Right.
I'm not doing those
Right.
things. I would
I'm sorry.
never cheat on you. I have no desire. No, I've never had a temptation. That's never happening, honey.
Your face is triggering me. I need you to walk away right now. Okay.
Now, here's what BetterUp.com also said. Now, this is past my pay grade right here, but this is where we need geniuses to help us understand these things like ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, and how the brain encodes traumatic memories differently than it records non-traumatic memories. Traumatic events
That's
often live
true.
just outside our conscious memory. However, our brain and body have a record of the threatening experience. Our brain and body, that reminds me of that famous book, Our Body Keeps the Score, which is a well-known research book about how trauma lives out in our bodies and can cause chronic illness. It can tempt us to substances and self-medication. Boom, this is heavy stuff we're talking about here, man.
Yeah, I always when I'm thinking about the difference between your brain and your mind,
Yeah.
to me the mind is like the whole body. Because you're right. You could have something that is in the pit of your stomach, but it's part of that mind because it kind of is all linked in a way, and that makes sense now that when you say that.
And if you are listening, I really want to encourage you to hang on and listen to us as Jordan and I open up now and talk about our own families. And we just ask you to just please do not judge us of what you're going to say. We're just going to be
No, please do.
you.
And write me specifically and let me know how I was in the right here. just teasing.
Just know, we are
I'm just
imperfect.
teasing.
Imperfect
we are.
husbands, imperfect dad,
Right.
imperfect men. I mean, this
Right.
is just what we want to be real with you. And also, I'm going to share with you 5 really quick, awesome action steps at the end of this of things that I've learned, things that I coach parents to do. So, Jordan, you wanted to do this episode because you said, you know what? When my wife told me something that triggered her, it was very helpful and interesting. So
very helpful. And that's why when you were talking earlier, like, would I ask my wife that, like, you need to figure this out? No, what I felt like is she was bringing it to my attention so that we could work through it together. Cause I would have no idea. She would have just been mad. Right. And what it was simple. Right. And it can go back to parenting differences. Right. I'm the dad. I'm okay if the kid gets a little scuffed up. If he falls over, he's got to learn to pick himself back up. From a motherly perspective, you want to protect your child. You want to make sure they're not falling down. You want to, protect them as much as possible. And I get it. So there's two different sides here, and we're both having to kind of shift a little bit. But one of them is we go to church or wherever we go, we get out of the car, and we walk to our destination. And we've got a 4-year-old who has special needs, right? He's got Down syndrome, and he loves to run. And I'm like, today I'm not going to hold his hand. I'm just going to let him see if he'll walk next to us and not run away. And so, of course, he's a kid and he loves to run, but it's in a parking lot, right? And he runs the opposite direction. And I'm like, you know what? It's fine. If he runs in front of a car's going to stop, right? Like, I'm like, I'm trying to give him wings. He's got to learn, right? I can't keep him tethered to the leash.
Yeah, buddy.
But as I learned that day, that is a big trigger. And it's like, we need to just pick him up. For my wife, we need to pick him up. We need to bring him to a safer zone. And yeah, you could give him that freedom, but give him that freedom at like a playground where,
Yeah,
he's going to
right.
climb up something, or instead of a parking lot where he could get run over and potentially die.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of
It's
learning there. And that's what I think is very important about this is like we all have different parenting styles, and we learned a lot about that in the episode of, punishment and timeouts and spankings, and like who agrees with it, who doesn't, and having to not only like blend your parenting, but adapt to each other so that you could have a healthy parenting outlook for your kids and for each other.
I got a bunch of questions for you regarding that story, but I'll just try to narrow it down to two. Um, how did your wife, Danny, how did she communicate this trigger to you? Was it done in a very aggressive, harsh, reactionary way, or was it done like in a way that really made it easy for you to listen to her and care and connect?
Great question. And I would say experience has given us the answer would be the latter. Because previously, like in a younger relationship we've been in, they would have been snappy, right? Right then and there. But she ran towards the child, picked him up, was frustrated, walked him in. We checked him in. We were at church at the time, checked him into their kids' sessions, went to the bathroom, came out and met each other. And I put my hand around her and she looked at me and was like, hey. And then she cooled off by that time and was like, I want you
Wow.
to know that I've been a little frustrated and this is why it was a trigger for me. And I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. I'm so glad you told
Oh,
me. Like,
wow.
okay, I'm sorry. I did not realize that.
That's cool.
So she actually
Wow.
kind of took a little time out of her own, right? A little
Yeah.
time to just reflect.
Next question. Do you know why I don't? For me, this seems like kind of a silly question to ask because I really do not like kids around cars and parking lots. But I'm just going to ask you, why did she get so triggered by this? Well, you did not.
Yeah, I think safety is the number one reason. Like he's unaware of, he's just playing a game, he's running away, and
Uh-huh.
he doesn't know if he runs out in front of this, car or not.
Yep.
And how many people are on their phones while they're in their car? You know what I'm saying? Like
Do you know
it
if
could easily
her
turn
did
south.
she ever have a bad experience like herself getting hit by a car or having a loved one get
No,
hit by
no,
a
not
car?
well, not that I know of.
Or
Not
a
that I know,
friend
no.
who had a child? No. Okay, there was no
Right, because that
backstory.
could be a trigger. You're right, because that could bring up childhood. And one of the other
Yeah.
triggers, which I'll talk about in a second, is one of those stories where it's a childhood
Oh,
situation that
okay.
comes back.
Yeah, I think that what I think you'll find for all of us, and this is a general statement. Again, I'm doing it now. Not all of us. For many of us, I got to stop my work up. Is there's fears that are underneath these triggers. Fears
Right.
that bad things are going to happen to me. Fears that no one cares about me. Fears that no one wants to hear my voice. Fears that I have no value in this relationship. Fears that if I just do this lazy parenting, then bad things are going to happen to my kid, or I'm going to wound my kid, or I'm going to traumatize my kid, or someone's going to hurt their kid.
Right. Right.
Right? We want to fight, flight, or freeze. It's scary, scary, scary stuff. So tell me more about what's your
And we
next
want to
question.
be, we want to make sure our children are able to grow up. Like I'm thinking right now, as you're saying this, that poor story a couple years ago, many parents may have heard this, but it was that little 2-year-old at like a Disneyland resort that ended up getting attacked by an alligator in
Yeah,
Florida. I
yeah,
don't know if you remember this. He was
yeah.
2.
Horrible,
And like that could have
horrible.
easily been a situation where like, let me give this kid some freedom. Go explore down by the pond. No big deal. And then the
Right.
worst happens. So I think we're all trying
Oh,
to avoid that. And it could have been, what if a car did come out? So I get
right.
that trigger 100%. And
You
I
know,
can change my method to do my style somewhere more
right.
safe.
And I mean, we've got a lot of people here who are they are first responders, or they're married to a first responder, or they had a child to a first responder. So imagine like what these first responders see, what these police women see, what these firefighters see, the culture. They see so much pain and trauma, these ER nurses. So it'd be
Yeah,
so hard to not bring that trauma into your parenting, into your home
totally.
life, and to
I don't know
just
how they do it.
it just to set those boundaries in your mind. But I when I share some stories with you, I've been struggling with this myself, man. I brought some of my pain and my trauma and my issues into my parenting, into my marriage recently, and it's caused a lot of pain. It happens, man. I think we all do it. We just have to. What I want to talk about this for is I want to heal, I want to change, I want to be better for my wife, but I want to make this podcast so we can all raise our awareness that this is not just happening to military soldiers. This is
Right.
every day, all of
Every
us.
day. I'll go
So
through two more real quick, and then we'll move on.
okay.
Another one I call poop extravaganza. All right, again, kid, special needs.
What?
Okay,
Hold on.
we're
Hold on.
okay.
Hold on.
Listen,
Hold on. You
give me
went
some
from
time.
like a
Let me
super
explain.
serious,
I
your
know.
kid maybe
This is
getting hit by a
serious.
car, which I'm super
This is
freaked
also
out
serious.
about. Okay, I
This
think
is
it'd be
serious.
serious.
Okay.
That's the number one thing that scares me actually in raising kids is having them hit by a car. So I do not
Yeah.
screw around in freaking parking lots. So now you're getting serious. Now you're getting silly. And what about poop extravaganza, my dog?
So we're still in the midst of potty training. It takes a while, and anytime we don't put them in the adaptive clothing, it's like you go number 2 in the morning, and what is this? Let me grab it. Let me touch it. Let me smell it. Let me reach into my diaper. Let me throw it on the wall. Let me rub it in the carpet. Right. So it gets us a day that started with a poop extravaganza, and it's not a pleasant day
Literally.
after that. You're like, are you freaking kidding me? This is how we're starting the day. So it's little things like that that can cause a trigger. So we know this. So we've adapted. So when we go to bed, we do this and we put him in adaptive clothing. So when you wake up, if he went pooped overnight, he's good to go. Learning is all I'm trying to say on that one. Last but not least, saying we're broke to our kids. Like, oh, I can't afford that. We're broke. We don't have any money. That is a big trigger for my wife. And that probably stems from a childhood situation. I mean, I grew up poor too. I remember, when I was a kid, and I was so nervous about it. Like I took the lack of my mom's money and the stress I could see from her, and I made it a point to never ask for new clothes, new school supplies, anything. Because I'm like, nope, we don't have the money. Nope, not going to do it. Nope, we're broke. I'm never going to ask for it. I'm never going to ask to go get food. Just so now it's like, don't tell our kids this. I don't want them ever to struggle about finances. Talk to them about money. Don't get me wrong. Educate them, but don't just say, can't do it, we're broke.
Wow, that good. So you saying we're broke, it triggers your wife because she doesn't
Yes.
want to traumatize the kids or to
Right.
shame the kids or to put fear into the kids because
Right.
she probably knows like, yeah, then they might feel guilty of getting a new toy or signing something out because we're broke. I get it.
And think about how powerful our language is, right? If you start
So
saying that
powerful.
at a young age, oh, we can't afford a house, can't afford a house, and then the kids grow up, it's like, well, my parents couldn't afford it, so I can never afford a house. And instead of like, let me find a way to afford a house, or let me find a way to make this happen. So that's why there's a difference between educating and just saying, nope, can't do it, we're broke.
I'm just going to throw out a crazy number. I have no research to back this numbers out. I would say that in my experience, at least 75% of marriages, including my own, have issues around money and how somebody's child experiences with money has now brought them in. They brought that baggage, that luggage into their marriage, and it's causing some issues.
Yeah. I think Dave Ramsey has a ton of data on that and like how many divorces are caused due to finances. Yeah, so you're up there, man. It's you're right. We need to talk about it more and both be comfortable with it.
I know for me, like just on that point, I don't want to change the subject. Like I had to pretty much, I mean, I was working at like starting at age 11 or 12. I was a paper boy and I had to just pay for pretty much everything on my own. And not everything. That's disrespectful to my parents. I shouldn't have said that. I had to pay for some things on my own,
Right.
and they enjoyed me doing that because they were
I
good
would
parents. They
too.
paid
I
for
look
a
at that and
lot
I'm
of
like, that's
things.
great.
I didn't grow up poor. I grew up in a really great childhood, but then going off to college, I had to put myself through college on loans, and I had very little. I have to be very careful with my words here. I had no financial support from my parents, and I had very little emotional support. So I had to survive out there on my own, and I made a ton of mistakes. And then after that, I got into working with kids, and there was no money in that. So I just got used to having no money, and so then now I get married to my wife who grew up with money and having nice things, and I just want to save. I want to live frugally.
Right.
I don't want to
Totally.
go and spend these things
Yes.
because, honey, you don't. I don't
Right.
want to be poor.
Right.
Right. I don't want to experience what I experienced before that I don't know. If I'm gonna be able to eat today. Right. And that's what I felt sometimes through college. Like, what the hell? And so yeah, she didn't have to feel that. So I brought a lot of baggage into our marriage when it comes to money and fear around that.
Right. So how have you guys had to adapt with when you teach your children things?
Thankfully, I think
Because
we've
I feel like that's a good balance
thrived.
between you. You
I
guys
think
have a good
we've,
balance.
yeah, there's a lot of areas we have not thrived when it comes to money. I think in talking about money and being on the same page with money, I think we've thrived. And I think a big way that we've thrived is that I trust her, and I think she trusts me, and we communicate a lot around money.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's good.
yeah, but
Adapting.
that actually can actually lead you into leads me into what triggers my wife.
Okay. Saving too much. Just kidding. That was a joke.
Yes. So up until I think a month or two ago, we have been thriving well with our businesses and money.
Great.
But
okay.
my wife's business is really taking off, and I've changed my business, and my business is really expanding quite a bit through the podcast, social media clients, my VIP membership, and so there's growing pains in that. And one thing I've really learned a lot is that one of my wife's triggers is that she really hates feeling dismissed.
Give us an example if you don't mind. Like, meaning like, I don't have time for dinner tonight, I'm working, dismissed?
It could be a lot of things. Now, that doesn't mean I'm dismissing my wife. It means she hates feeling dismissed. So I think, so you see where I'm going with that first off?
Yeah, I do.
Like
the feeling alone. Yeah.
These are feelings. Yeah. What do you think of feeling dismissed? Like by your best friend?
Like forgotten.
Spouse?
To me, it would be
what does that mean?
Forgotten.
Dismissed. Forgotten. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
second best. Yeah. We had an appointment. You canceled it. We were supposed to have coffee. You instead took a meeting. Dismissed. You are working so much, you're not even present. You're all in your head. We're dismissed. Yeah, that's my thought.
Yep, that's not how it's playing out, unfortunately, in my home. But that is a very common way. How it's playing out is that she will say something to me, and I will react with like a really snarky comment or a short comment or a belittling comment based on what she said. I've been struggling with that a lot.
Why do you do that? Because you're put in a position that's like,
my therapist,
I don't have to deal with this.
Yeah, my therapist. I have two therapists myself. Just asked me that same exact question. Actually, why did you do that, Sean?
Right. What do you? I don't understand.
I don't want to talk about this right now, man. I don't. I don't want to talk about this. I said, well, I'd like your help in understanding why I've been doing this. I said that to Don, therapist, but I said to him, you know what I think it is I think I'm just being selfish, and I'm not really present with Danielle. I'm just like in la la land. Like this comment, that I said, like one time she was asking me, we were organizing. Here's an example of like what I've been doing. We've been we were organizing a group with some of our friends, and it was going to be at our house, like a dinner party, right? We have an intentional dinner party with some of our friends. And she was like, so, hey, maybe, I was like, hey, maybe we can have a picnic at the lake. And she said, oh, I don't know. We should maybe check with the group to see if they want to do that. Okay. That sounds like a lovely thing for her to say, right?
Yeah.
Right. But
let's check with the group. It's not up to just you. Let's check with everybody, make sure it's cool. Yeah.
But I'm walking down the stairs and I say to her, this isn't a democracy. I don't care. They never ask us, where we want to have dinner. So let's just plan it at the lake. That's where we want to have it. That's what
okay. I see. Yeah.
See, that's not cool. That's not cool. That's not nice. And
but to me, in this situation, you're not mad at Danielle. You're not fighting with Danielle. It's more of like, you're kind of upset at the idea, like, who are these people to tell us where we have to do dinner? Let's just do dinner. Right?
Yeah, but imagine if I were to talk like that with her, like, numerous times a day.
Okay. Yes, it will. 100%.
I'm not saying I do that numerous times a day, but that feeling of kind of feeling dismissed, and the second one that I have is kind of feeling she doesn't like feeling belittled, or like if I have a harsh tone. In that example, which of me walking down the stairs, I think it encapsulates all three of those. It had a harsh tone, it was kind of belittling, dismissing her idea. Like, that's a foolish idea. Like, what are you talking about? we don't have to ask their permission. This isn't a democracy. We make the decisions
Right.
here. And it was just very careless and selfish and kind of mean, I think.
Okay, so the good news is you've talked to your therapist about this. You are aware of this. How do you, since this whole podcast is about like mingling together and figuring out each other's triggers and adapting, how do you do that? So, because sometimes I bet it just comes out and you're like, man, where did that come
It
from? I
sure
got to figure out
does.
how. I got to
Yeah, I
figure
think
this out.
what the Gottman Institute and what their books have taught me is there's these things called solvable problems and perpetual problems. And
Okay.
so one of my struggles is that sometimes, Jordan, when I'm not really like slowing down and being mindful in conversations, I have a tendency to do this to people, man. I do it to my kids sometimes. I do it to my friends. I can be very dismissive and salty sometimes with people, and unfortunately
Right.
for my wife, this is something I'm really working at, and working. I need to work harder at, and dude, it still happens sometimes, man.
Yeah. No, and I get it. And we're all not perfect, right? But, some people snap and yell and scream and throw things and be physical. And this, I feel like, would be on the lighter side, but it's the whole theory of like, sticks and stones break my bones, but words can never hurt me. Words, they can dig, man, and they
Right?
really can. So that can be tough
Yeah.
and hard to overcome.
No, I'm not going to get into talking about my wife. That's her
No, that's
private
fine.
business. She's not here. But imagine if you had a parent who talked to you that way growing up.
Right.
Now,
It would be hard for you to ever feel confident again.
yeah. So now you marry a spouse, and that spouse is, talking to you in that same way, right?
Right.
So
Verbal
here's
abuse,
your,
so to speak.
yeah. It would feel like very intense. Like I have a couple more stories, and I'll tell you. So here's let me share the first tip that I have with you that I've learned. Can I share a tip?
Yeah,
Here's a
yeah.
tip: is that I've got, I think, 5 great tips for y'all listening. Is the first one is I want you to become comfortable with this term called a tender spot. A tender
Okay.
spot. So, like for me, my mother is a very powerful woman. She's in her mid to late 70s now. And my upbringing with her is that at times she would be extremely aggressive with me, very aggressive. I felt controlled and I felt belittled as a child. I felt threatened in time and unsafe at times. And she did the best she could, but I'm just being honest with you. You with me?
Yep.
So I have a tender spot when it comes to people like speaking to me in a way where I feel controlled. You with me?
So that would be a trigger for you then.
Yeah, I can be triggered if someone's talking to me in a way where I
That
might
makes you
feel
feel
controlled.
controlled.
It doesn't mean they're controlling me,
I know.
it-
Makes you feel that way.
right? Because actually, nobody can control me. No one can control anybody actually, but it's like a tender spot, and I could go to therapy my whole life, and that tenderness is probably still going to be there.
Right.
That's
So you're
the way
aware
my
of
brain
it
works. Hmm.
and you have to try to overcome it.
I do have to do my own part. I have to do my
Right.
own work. And then I have to do what your wife did, which is here's another spot, is communicate that tender spot effectively to the loved ones in your life. Your wife, Danny, gave us a great example of that, man.
But the hard part is a lot of us don't even know what our triggers are. You asked me what my triggers are. I had to sit there. I'm like, shoot, I don't know. What
Yeah,
are my
what's up with
triggers?
that?
I had to think about it. I had
Yeah,
to walk
I know what's up
around.
with that.
I don't
I was a
know.
little surprised you said that
I
because
was like, I can't figure it
I'm trying to
out.
share my triggers. Okay, well, here, let me see if I can help, okay?
Yeah.
Because can I try to help? Okay, I'm going to
Yeah.
read a bunch of words and I'm going to read them super fast. Super fast. I'm not going to give you the definitions. What I'm reading is I give all of my clients who join me in my VIP membership all these amazing guides and these amazing tools to help them to really level up their parenting, solve any
Yeah.
problems that
Feel.
they have in parenting. And I'm going to read you.
Yeah.
I'm going to read you something off of my guide. Okay.
Okay.
This
All
comes from
right.
part of my assessment, my high level parenting EQ assessment. Ready? Do you hate feeling these words, Jordan? Ready? And if you want to, you might want to jot some of them down. So I'm going to read them really fast. Abandoned,
jeez.
rejected, alone, lonely, anxious, nervous, belittled, dumb, betrayed, controlled, criticized, picked on, deceived, lies to, mistrustful, defective, disappointment, disconnected, disrespected, failure, helpless, powerless, hopeless, humiliated, embarrassed, ignored, unheard, inferior, invalidated, judged, intimacy, misportrayed, misunderstood, not good enough, inadequate, bored, ashamed, shamed, guilty, taken advantage of, unaware, FOMO, unincluded, shut out, treated unfairly, unimportant, am I ready to? Unknown,
Just like,
worried,
yes, yes, yes,
unloved.
yes, 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 yeah.
Gosh, that's why you're doing
No, I'm doing it
that.
because my pen won't work. No, rejected was big.
Okay, hold on.
Criticized
I'm
was
almost done.
big.
Oh, there's two more
Okay,
words. There's three more.
okay,
Worthless,
yeah,
violated
that's all.
slash attacked in my garden, unwanted, unloved. Okay,
Did you
what were
say
some?
violated or attacked in my garden? What'd you say?
Yeah, think of it like a comma, violated, comma, or attacked, or like in my garden. It's like this feeling like someone's like in your talking about you. They're calling you names. It's like they're labeling your behavior. It's
Okay,
like
okay,
they're violating your space, your
yeah,
boundaries, your
yeah,
beinghood. Okay, what
totally.
words pop off for you, dude?
Well, I couldn't. There was one. So I said rejected. I said criticized. Right. Which I've had to learn a lot about because I get criticized a lot in my industry, and I just have to be like, I had to actually adapt and be a chameleon, not let it affect me as much. But I get, I guess if it's someone personal criticizing me, like if my parents are saying something about me or family says something, I'm just like, I have to figure out how to brush it off.
That's
Um,
good. That's good. That's good.
Dismissed. I realized, like the word no, I can't stand, especially, for my kids now. It's like, nope, not like, so that would be more of like a disrespect thing. Like I'm asking you to do something, you're saying no, so you're disrespecting me, right?
Yep. Yep.
Um,
Yep. Yep.
but I could have a lot of those words. However, you came up with that list, man. Those are some great descriptive words. Good job.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been working on this for a long time, man. Maybe almost a decade on this assessment. And that's just a tiny part of it. Anything else that
Yeah,
come up? So rejected, criticized, and dismissed are the three words that you kind of shared, and disrespected. Out of those four
disrespected. Yeah,
words,
but only disrespected. Like if someone were to like, it has to be something specific, I guess.
okay.
Because I've come to a point now where it's like hard for me to get disrespected. I don't get um
Mm-hmm.
not opinionated. What's the word I'm looking for? Where when someone says something and impacts you, offended. I don't get offended easily anymore. I'm just like whatever, you know what I mean. Just brush them off.
Yeah.
So getting
Yeah, man.
disrespected is kind of it'd be tough. We could probably throw that one away.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the word disrespected. It's a very common word. It's a popular word, but I think that when a parent says I'm feeling disrespected or that's disrespectful, I don't think they're communicating well. I don't think they're being really precise about what they're feeling, and there's probably something underneath that. It's
Yeah.
like it's like anger there's always something underneath the anger. What is it really?
Right.
Is it powerlessness? Is it unimportant? Is it disappointment? Is it dismissed? Right.
Yeah. Those are good. Disappointment dismissed. But I mean, there's a
So
lot of them we can all adapt, and we can all not adapt, but we can all relate to. Um, I don't know if it's like the five love languages where it's like we all kind of gear towards a couple in your assessments. I mean, I'm sure
yeah.
you've probably done some assessments, and some people have circled almost all of them. They're like, yeah,
They sure do. Some people do check almost every box, and then I got to work them through that to help them laser point it down to what's really going on. So, you chatted with me earlier that there's something going on when your wife doesn't answer your phone that really triggers you.
So yeah, my question is like, would you rather have a spouse that's on their phone all the time or never on their phone? And you would say never on their phone. I want them to be present. I want them to be with me, right? I want them.
Yeah,
I don't want them sitting there on
yeah.
their phone the whole car ride when I
Oh
could be
my
talking to them or
gosh. Yeah.
whatever, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Until you get into a situation where it's like you can't reach them, and you're like, I need something. I'm locked out of the house, or the kids are calling from
Oh my
school because they got hurt.
gosh.
The school can't get into because she is a situation where like it's great, actually. She just doesn't care about her phone. It could be blowing up, ringing,
Oh,
texting. And it's
love
like,
it.
I have nowhere I need to
That's
be other than
amazing.
right here. And if someone really needs me,
Oh,
they'll get in touch with you. So then she knows that I have my
so
phone on me. So if
healthy.
they really need it, so it's actually kind of nice to see. But there are situations where I'm like, I needed you in that moment and you didn't answer. I'm so frustrated right now. Where were you? Right. And so that used to trigger
Dude.
me a lot. In
Yeah,
fact, we
man.
even joked about getting a landline, like old
Yeah,
school phone
yeah.
with the cord,
Yeah, buddy.
because it's the only way to get in touch with her.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, a lot of preppers, and a lot of old fogies. They still got those old landlines because
They're
they
great.
don't. Yeah, dude.
They'll
When
ring.
the cell towers go out, they'll still
That's
work.
right.
Yeah, I think
Roto dial.
for me, I I do not like feeling criticized.
Yeah, and
Whatever
that's
it
going to be
is.
hard. Like, how do you? Because you get criticized a lot in your work, but it seems like it's not impacting you. Is it?
Yeah, no, it doesn't. It doesn't really impact me. I'm really specifically talking about in my marriage. I don't like feeling
Yeah. Right.
criticized because remember, there's like, what the Gottmans have taught us. There's a difference between a complaint and a criticism, and it's just hard. And here's some interesting things because many people have a sensitivity or a tenderness to criticism. It's very very common. But check this out. This is very enlightening. I'm trying to work this out in my own personal life. Is that there's these four horsemen of the apocalypse, the Gottmans say. It's like if you have these four things in your marriage or in your romantic relationship, then it's like this is not good. This is a cry for help. This is not healthy. And the four things are criticism, defensiveness, stonewalling, and oh my gosh, I'm blanking. And one more thing I'll get to in a second. Okay. But check it out.
Criticism,
Criticism.
stonewalling.
If someone is feeling criticized, well, then one of the things they're going to be tempted to do is criticize back.
Right.
But also, if someone's being criticized, like you feel like they're coming at them with an aggressive tone or a harsh tone or it's just so much negativity or it's crossed the line. Well, then that person is going to be tempted to possibly do defensiveness. And see how that can create this fear dance?
Circle. Yeah.
Circle, right? It's like a cycle. One person is doing a lot of criticisms, the other person does defensiveness. But then if you're trying to
Stonewalling.
talk with me,
Right.
oh yeah, you could look it up. If you're trying to talk with me about something that is important to you, let's say your wife Danielle, and you're like, Jordan, like, please do not let our 4-year-old son roam around in the parking lot. And then let's say I respond with defensiveness.
Right.
Come on, you're over exaggerating. You got to let the kids be kids. Like you got problems. See, I didn't do anything. It's not a big deal. See how that's all defensiveness?
Mm-hmm.
Like, just relax. It's not a big deal. I got this. Chill out. Do you think that is going to make the person who's criticizing you feel better?
Right. Like, oh, okay, I'll chill. Yeah. No, that ain't happening.
So defensiveness actually gives birth to more criticism. So then now the person's doing more criticism.
Right.
And do you think that this criticism is going to make the person who's feeling defensive respond well?
Right. Right. It is a cycle. So how do we break that cycle?
Well,
especially if you're in it.
So first is realize you have tender spots. Here's another tip. Validate and honor. Never minimize or dismiss.
Oh, I like that.
Validate and honor.
Validate.
Tender spots.
Yes.
Validate and honor people's tender spots. Never dismiss or minimize. And trust me, I've got personal experience with this dismissiveness. It hurts people so much.
Me too. Right.
It hurts.
That's good. Tender spots, realize we have them. We all have them. That's a good thing to realize. And then when we're in an argument or constructive criticism or criticism in general, we need to validate and honor.
Yeah.
Never dismiss.
Here's another tip I learned, okay? There's a difference between discomfort and trauma, okay? So your wife, with the experience with the car, as well as my wife, with me saying the harsh comment about how this isn't a democracy, right. I believe I can't speak for our wives, but these are probably experiences of discomfort, not trauma.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Right?
Trauma would be, yes, I could totally.
Now, if your wife or my wife do have trauma in their background, like maybe they were dismissed or maybe some, by their own parent figure or by a past lover a lot, or maybe they were had a bad experience with a car, well then that would be their job to figure out. That's their work. Where does my discomfort really coming from? Is this really something that I need to do more work on? Like, why am I letting this event in this
Manipulate
person
my day.
saying this
Right.
affect me so much? Why am I giving them so much power? Right? What do you
Right.
think about that?
That's exactly what my point was. Like, is it just an excuse to keep yourself in that situation instead of actually standing up and be like, no, I don't need to feel this way. I can overcome this.
Yeah, where do you think the line stands on that? Like, where is it where, like, if you trigger somebody, what's your opinion? How much is their responsibility, and how much is ours responsibility, our blame or our fault? What's your take on that?
I would say if you're the
That's
one being triggered, it's 100% your fault.
Hmm.
However, okay,
Okay.
meaning you've realized this, it is a trigger, you're the one who is getting triggered, it is impacting you no matter what the circumstances. Okay, even if it's someone in the military and they have this PTSD, I totally get it. Like that's something that I can't control, but it still is only happening to that one person.
Right.
So I say it's 100% the individual. However, it's more of like a 50-50 thing with the other person that is causing the triggering, because
Right.
you have to realize that maybe you're the one causing it, so you need to take a
Yeah,
step
buddy.
back.
Yeah, man.
Right? So it's like
Yeah.
that's the thing about adapting that I've
Yeah.
been trying to kind of allude to
Huh.
is it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. It's happening, so let's figure out a way to stop it.
Ooh. Gosh, man, we could do a whole nother episode on what you just said. Here's two things that I've learned from my therapist over the last 20 years that I think are two of the best things I've learned. Let me share them with you, and I'm going to get your thoughts. Okay, ready? One is that if my wife is discomforted or traumatized or she's in a bad spot, well, then you know what? I want the whole world to stop. I want to be there for her. If my wife is hurting, that doesn't mean I'm hurting. But if my wife is hurting, then I want to be there. I want to show up. I don't want to minimize her. I don't want to call her names. I don't want to tell her to go talk to her friends or go talk to a therapist. I want to be available. Now, those other things could be good. Talking to friends, talking to therapists, right? Those can be helpful things. But I want her to feel like when she's in a really bad spot, the whole world stops.
That's really great. I don't think a lot of people share that because it's hard, especially with certain people that every little thing bothers them or triggers them or causes problems, and they're always frustrated and they're always coming to vent, and you're like becoming the venting board, and that can be hard. Be like, dude, I can't listen to this anymore, right?
If you're in that situation, yeah, that's what
Yeah.
good marriage therapists help with, right? Because you feel like then the
But if
world
it's an
stops
actual
every day.
thing that you know and you could see that's
Right.
in, you're like, I get it. I want to be there. I want the world to stop.
Hey man,
But
I don't claim to be an expert at what I just said right there, by the way. I don't claim
but
to
you
be
have those
perfect
feelings, so
in
that's
that.
good. You want to help out. That's great.
Here's
We
the
always
second
want to
thing.
fix, right?
Yeah.
We want to
Yeah.
fix
Some
the
people,
situation.
some men and women are fixers. They're healers. They don't want to just talk or sit in the pain. They want to bring love and order, peace, healing. Here's the second thing. You ready?
Yeah.
When your child is really acting out, when your lover or your spouse is really reacting or very traumatized or very triggered, say this to yourself. It's not about you. This is not about you. This is about them. What do you think about that?
Okay. All right. So meaning it's not about me. I'm saying this to myself, right?
Yeah, this is not about
Okay.
you. This is not about
Okay.
me. This is about them. They are going through something. What do you think about that?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm conflicted right now
Oh, okay, tell
because
us.
they are going through something. They are going through something.
Yeah, they are.
But
So when
but
they're going
maybe
through
it
something, You say to yourself, this is not about me.
Right. Right.
What do you like it?
Okay.
Do you not like it?
No, now I've digested it. So I do like it. It's a wise thing
Why?
to say because
Why do you like
because
it?
sometimes when someone close to us is going through something, um, we tend to think it's because of us, or we get defensive, like you were saying, because maybe it was something we did, and we start getting defensive. But if we think this, maybe it'll slow us down into
Yeah.
actually figuring out the problem.
The next time, let me say, what was the? Did you do a Google search? What was the four horsemen of the apocalypse? Did you? I saw you googling it. So the next time
No,
your child is stonewalling you, raging at you, next time someone in your life is criticizing you, next time someone in your life hurts your feelings because they said something careless, whether they're, where they're here on the phone, a careless text, is it careless as they walk down the stairs, the next time someone does something careless in a parking lot, the next time someone's reacting at you or doing the four horsemen, which are what?
criticism, contempt, defensiveness, stonewalling,
Oh, contempt. What was the
contempt.
one I missed? Ooh, that's a nasty one too. What do you think contempt is?
I hold you in contempt. I hold myself in contempt. What was that movie?
is that
A
is
Few
that
Good
is
Men. Is that what it was?
oh my god, no, that's you can't handle the truth.
That's right. That's you can handle the truth.
I think that was liar liar, dude. What you just did.
That's
You did
right. It
Jim
was
Carrey.
liar, liar. That's right.
I held myself in contempt. Who's Jim
I
Carrey?
forgot
No.
about that.
Remember you say it's we're so tempted to react, to fight, to flight, to freeze, to fix, to control, to be defensive, to criticize, to psychologize, to pep talk, to lecture, to self-medicate. And what therapists have taught me, and I think they teach a lot of people in good books, is this is not about you. In fact, if you want to show up with love for this person, give them loving responses, gentleness. If you want to be present and care for them in that emotional spot, you can't make it about you because that's
Right.
not love. What love is that you show them love even when they're not showing you love. What love is that you show them love without expecting any love in return. What love is that you show them your love and your presence even though they are not in a good spot or showing you love.
And that's hard to do because so many times it is so hard to get to that. Because you could be frustrated also in this situation, and you showing them love when they're not showing love. Oh, that's going out of your comfort box and having to step into this. Oh man, that. But every time I do that, it's like I remember a buddy of mine was getting in a fight with his wife at the time, and they were just mad at each other. And I said, "Hey, I don't know what it is. I don't care what it is. Why don't you just go over there and give her a hug?" And he's like,
Yeah.
"Absolutely not." I'm like, "No, no, just listen.
Yep.
Just go give her a hug." You know what I mean? And in that situation, it kind of drops those walls. It drops those boundaries.
Yeah, man. Physical touch is a great thing. I love that story. And physical touch
Whatever
when
love,
you're
yeah, whatever,
triggered.
yeah,
Yeah, it's a great love language, but I think I've found that for many people, not all people, when they're triggered, just having someone either hold their hand or just give them eye contact and listen or just
right.
give them a
Be
hug.
there.
For some people, that's healing. That's loving.
Hmm.
Some people they're not into that. They just want someone to talk to, someone safe, to vent,
Yep.
to get it out. Here's another two more tips, then we'll close our show. Does that sound good to you?
Sounds good.
I found that you heard me teach a lot about this on my podcast. I'm really a big fan of this term, soft startups. So when you find yourself triggered, which is going to happen maybe today, how do you talk? Do you talk with harshness, with a critical tone? Do you belittle people, label their behavior? When you talk to somebody, do they want to listen to you? I think when we've been triggered, having soft startups is so helpful. And I think you gave us a good example of that when your wife, she like calmed herself down at that day at church and she talked to you after the kids were in daycare and she handled herself and she sounds like she communicated in a very inviting way.
Yeah, because it's so much easier to understand that and digest that rather than someone who snaps or yells in the moment.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah. I think you're going to love my last tip. Are you ready? So there's a pretty famous book out there. It's called The Coddling of the American Mind. And I actually made a video about it, about this book. And I guess what these super smart researchers found is that there's these really bad ideas out there. And if a young person latches on to one of these ideas, well, then their mind is going to go downhill. And I won't get into the ideas because we're not going to do a book review on this. But essentially, one of the bad ideas would be that you view you view discomfort as very bad. Like, avoid discomfort.
Okay.
Why do anything that's uncomfortable? It's not good
Right.
for you to be out of your comfort zone. And you need to teach people in your life to treat you in a coddling way so that you can stay comforted. Sounds pretty
I do
bad.
not belong.
It's
No,
a very
that sounds
popular idea.
terrible.
This is the research
Terrible
found that
idea.
a lot of people
Nope.
believe in that. Another one
So
of these
never
bad
work out
ideas
because
is
you're never go for a run.
everything is traumatic.
Yes, everything's traumatic. It's ridiculous.
Everything is traumatic. Everything is traumatic. It's not discomfort. It's like if you believe that so many of these things are traumatic.
Don't have a baby because you put yourself in discomfort.
Oh my God.
Right?
So
don't do any of
here's
this.
what I have found. I've been helping parents and young people with this thing for a long time. I'm really into what I'm about to say, and I know you're really going to be into it. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Are you a victim or a victor? Are you a victim or a victor? And the training is that train your mind, do the work you need to do so that the trauma you've been through, the hard, tender spots, or the tender spots in your life, the hard experiences you've been through, the painful childhood memories, the painful experiences in marriage, the painful experience in family life, the painful experience in work and mental health, how do you view those? Do you view yourself as a victim?
Right.
That you have been so hurt and that you will never change and that you've been traumatized forever and that you need everyone to treat you better. Because you know what? This is what I've been through, and it's hard.
Right.
And you don't know what I've been through, so I'll change and treat me this way. Stop saying this to me. Stop saying that to me. Walk in eggshells to me. Don't say that to me. It hurts. It hurts. I'm hurting. I'm a victim. Or do you see yourself as a victor? Say, you know what? I've been through some stuff. I've been through some really painful things. I've been hurt. I have trauma. I have pain. I have bad things. I have bad memories. But you know what? I refuse to sit in that. I'm going to do the work I need to do to heal and to grow and to mature and to be a healthy adult for my kids.
Amen.
Myself,
we need
my spouse and my family. What do you think about that?
Yes, we need more like that. That is the view to make this world a better place. There's no room for too many victims because we already have enough of those. And for some reason, I don't know why this was even taught to begin with. Because pick any other living creature on this planet, and they have it nowhere near as comforting as human beings do. And pick any other country, and it's nowhere near as comforting as what you could have in America, right? The freedoms that come with that. And yet we always find something that's problematic. And in doing so, we're victims. But the reality is, we should all be victors. Life should be happening for us, not to us. Don't sit back and be like, oh, because it'll just be terrible then. You've got to take action. You've got to be the one to actually move forward and actually take the steps and grow, or else you're just going to be the same forever.
Thank you for letting Jordan and I be in your life. We love you. We love your family. We love your parenting. It's an honor being in your life. 1 second. I just wanted to end it there because it was so good. 1 second.
Great.
What you were saying.